In the history of the world, it's never a good thing to say, "We need to talk," especially if it's accompanied by an abbreviated spouse's name. When Greg became Gregory, I realized the final chapter had begun. The private investigator I'd hired, he looked like a 1950s tracker escaped from a black-and-white detective movie, was bugging the hotel room my wife Carol shared with her boss, John Hoffman, the newly appointed executive vice president of sales at Home First Enterprises, a friendly alternative to big box stores. The pictures showed Mr. Hoffman getting friendly with my wife in at least 4 poses. From that point on, I spent every spare minute thinking of a revenge plan. The most important thing was to behave normally until I was ready to unleash the full force of hellfire on the adulterers. The next week passed agonizingly slowly. Carol was very reluctant to talk about her workday, which used to be the main topic of our evening conversations. Each day she became more and more withdrawn. But I persisted. "Did anything interesting happen today? Who did you go to lunch with?" And my favorite, "What do you think of the new boss?" Carol would stammer out an unsure answer and change the subject. Our evenings became very quiet. I had followed them enough to know that all their meetings took place during long Friday lunches. Hoffman would leave to call clients at 11:15, and Carol would leave 10 minutes later. Her excuse was that she had an appointment with a chiropractor. They were meeting at a business-class motel on the highway. We had enough evidence to hang this couple in divorce court. The paperwork was in order, the guns were loaded, and the war horses were ready to go. It was time to take them on. I showed up at Home First Enterprises 5 minutes after Carol left. I walked in and asked Maria, the receptionist, to tell my wife that her hubby had arrived to take her to lunch. "I'm sorry, Mr. Eaton, but your wife left to see her doctor a few minutes ago." "Doctor?" "She has an appointment every Friday at 11:30. A couple days a week she skips lunch, and every Friday she has a long lunch." "Thanks. I must have forgotten." The day before, I had bought a prepaid phone to call her at an unfamiliar number. It was the last week of the quarter, and Carol had to answer so she wouldn't miss a sale that might bring her a bonus. "Good afternoon. This is Carol Eaton speaking." Her voice sounded sweet, almost musical, as a salesperson should. "Is everything okay?" I could barely get the words out. "What are you talking about?" "I tried to surprise you by stopping by and taking you to lunch. The receptionist said you have doctor's appointments every Friday. Are you okay?" I tried my best to look concerned. "I'm fine. It's nothing special. Just a routine procedure at the chiropractor." I could tell from her tone that she clenched her jaws. She wasn't happy, and I hoped it reflected on the bed cheater. "That's odd, because I met Dr. Wilczak a few hours ago. He said he hadn't seen you in over a year and asked if you were cheating on him. When did you change chiropractors?" No answer. "Could you at least tell me who our new chiropractor is?" "I don't have time for this nonsense right now. We'll talk tonight when I get home." She hung up. On a typical Friday night, we ordered pizza, and that was the case tonight. I was paying the delivery man when Carol drove into the garage in her black BMW. "About time," I announced. "I'm not feeling very well. I'm going to go lie down for a while," Carol muttered and hurried up the stairs. The next sound was the slamming of the bathroom door. She was still awake 3 hours later when I joined her in bed. I nudged her one last time. "Why are you being so secretive about going to the doctor? Is there something you're not telling me?" I was relentless. "Carol, I'm tired of worrying about you. Please tell me what you're hiding." "Stop bothering me. I told you everything was fine. It's been a long day and I'm tired. We'll talk tomorrow." I had a hard time falling asleep because I could hear Carol crying into her pillow. I don't think she slept more than a few minutes at a time. I couldn't help but wonder how well Oedipus slept the night before he killed his father. On Saturday, Carol was like hell from the moment she woke up. If we had a dog, she would have chewed her up. The promised talk with the doctor never happened. Whenever I tried to strike up a conversation, Carol dodged the subject. She managed to avoid me for most of the day, but after lunch I finally caught up with her. I pretended nothing had happened and told her we had reservations at Antonix's, her favorite restaurant, for 6 o'clock that evening. Maybe that will help you get out of the state you're in, which seems to have stolen your smile. She replied with a blank stare and shrugged. At 5, I found Carol sitting on our bed looking at the wall. I have a surprise for you. I held out a box of Neiman Marcus to her. She didn't open it. I felt awkward standing there looking at her. I hope you wear it today. When she came downstairs, I complimented her on how great she looked in her new dress. I was going to save it for a special occasion, but it looks like you need it now. I held out the wrapped box to Carol. Carol tore open the paper, opened the box, and started sobbing. These will look great with your new dress. And the string of pearls did. Dinner passed in silence. She spoke so softly that the waitress could hardly make out her order. Even 3 shots of vodka didn't loosen her tongue. Most of the dinner went home in a doggy bag. When I pulled into the garage, she didn't wait for me to open the door for her. She got out of the car before I even unbuckled my seatbelt. She stopped, turned her head, and said, "Thank you." Those were her first words in over 2 hours. I watched her walk up the stairs and lock herself in the master bathroom. I stood on my tiptoes and listened at the door. As I expected, she was talking to Hoffman, no doubt wanting to assure him that they would be together soon. I retreated to my den and awaited my fate. I pulled a small vial from my suit pocket and swallowed a handful of tranquilizers. I had been taking those little pills like candy ever since I found out about my wife's infidelity. It was the only thing that kept me from going crazy. I watched Carol in the family room mixing another drink. I watched her empty her glass. She was still wearing the little black dress I had given her as a surprise at the beginning of the evening. I looked up and smiled. Damn, she looks good, I thought. Catching my gaze, she looked away. Even though I was aware of the impending conversation, it still gripped me like a heart attack. I pretended to be reading a book when she finally walked in. Carol stood in silence for a good 2 minutes before making small talk. "Gregory, is this a good book?" When I heard my full Christian name and saw that she was looking at her feet and not at me, I knew the end of my marriage was near. I rehearsed this moment for almost 2 weeks. I prayed that I wouldn't break the script. I put the bookmark between the pages, closed the book, and said, "Not as good as our marriage." So what is on the mind of the woman I love more and more each day? Perhaps you will finally tell me what is troubling your soul. I saw tears come to her eyes. "What's wrong, my beloved?" I feigned concern. "I'm so worried about you." I took her hands in mine. She was already sobbing. "Did the doctor give you any bad news?" "No!" she replied much louder than could be heard in the room. "Is that your mom? Is she okay?" She shook her head negatively. "Your dad, he's—" My words were cut short. She shook her head again. I'm fine. No, it's something else." "Oh." I stood up, pulled a matching chair out from under the octagon-shaped chess table, and motioned for my wife to sit down. As soon as she sat down, I said, "I'll be right back." "Where are you going?" She looked puzzled. "I'll only be a couple minutes late. I need to get something upstairs." I pulled an attaché case and a laptop out of the safe in my office. Carol was sitting at her desk with her hands folded in her lap when I returned. Her eyes were red and puffy. Without saying a word, I set the bag on the floor next to the chair and then flicked the pieces off the chessboard. They bounced off the wooden floor with a clatter. Carol watched with a confused expression on her face. Then I sat down across from her, opened the computer, and started typing. "What are you doing?" I put my finger to my lips and said, "Shh, almost done." The quiet clicking of keys and her labored breathing were the only sounds in the room. After a couple minutes, I closed the laptop and announced, "All done. So, my loving wife, what is weighing so heavily on your mind?" I'm having a really hard time getting started. She began to cry even harder, and I held out a handkerchief to her. Finally, she managed to whisper, Yeah, I don't want to hurt you. You've been the perfect husband. I remained silent. Yeah, you. Gregory, you know I love you. And I love you. I took her hands in mine and squeezed them. That's what makes this so hard. To say you love me? No, it's just, Gregory, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. And I said that. Carol buried her face in her palms and muttered. I don't know how it happened. It almost killed me, but I held my tongue. I watched her lower her head shamefully. Finally, Carol broke the silence. We've been together since freshman year of high school. It's always been Greg and Carol. I need some time to be me, and not our other half. So you don't love me anymore because our friends look at us and see what I thought was a happily married couple? No, you're confusing my words. You said you don't love me anymore. You're going to have to do a much better job of explaining what you're talking about. You can't understand. You're a successful businessman and I'm suffocating in your shadow. You have a very good job. My job has nothing to do with it. Carol sounded like a cranky child. I waited at least a minute before asking, Did you find us a marriage counselor? That's not exactly what I had in mind. That leaves divorce, then. No, Greg, you're looking at it the wrong way. I want this for us to be a better couple. Then tell me, what exactly are you thinking? Carol's voice became very meek. I was thinking we could try a trial separation. A trial separation! My voice filled the room. Carol leaned back in her chair. Wait, let me explain. I clenched my fists. Please explain. Amy from work and her husband had a similar problem. I interrupted. What kind of problem? I told you. She lost her identity. Isn't that the idea of marriage? Two become one. Gregory, and how long will this little experiment of yours last? Amy said they started dating again after a couple months and are thinking about getting back together. Dating? While you're on vacation, are you going to date? Or have you already found someone? No. I told you I love you. I'm not looking for a replacement for you. I just need to be alone to be myself. That doesn't answer my question. And where are you going to live after you move out? A long silence followed. I was hoping you'd get an apartment somewhere nearby. It's much safer for a man to live alone than a woman. I laughed. That's never going to happen. Not now. Not ever. Please, Gregory, don't be so unreasonable. I'm trying to make our marriage stronger. I growled. Stronger if you renege on your commitment. Stronger if you renege on your promises for better and for worse. In sickness and in health. Stop me if any of this sounds familiar to you. Oh, Gregory, you're looking at this the wrong way. We'll be together again, I promise. We already know what your promises are worth. Oh, Gregory, please don't say that. Her voice broke. I'll say it again. What exactly has happened that makes you so unhappy in our marriage? Nothing much. Just a lot of little things. Like going to the country club and having the valet address me as Mrs. Eaton. You're upset because the country club you just joined has manners to match a minimum wage valet. No, it's not just that. It's 100 little things I can't remember. She paused, waiting for an answer, which I never got. Oh, Gregory, I can't tell you why it happened. It just happened. For a long time, neither of us uttered a word. Finally, I broke the silence by undoing 2 clasps on my briefcase. I pulled out 2 folders of legal documents and placed them on the table. Then I opened my laptop and called up a picture. So that's why this happened? I turned the screen so that Carol could see a picture of her walking hand in hand with her lover into a business-class hotel. The next picture showed my unfaithful wife breaking our wedding vows. Every 30 seconds, a new photo appeared. Her face lost color. She fainted and collapsed in her chair. I waited a few minutes, then brought Carol a glass of ice water and helped her take a sip. She looked confused and frightened as each new picture appeared. She turned away. Her voice trembled. "How long have you known?" "You mean how long have I known that the woman who swore before God and men to forsake all others betrayed me? Long enough to have prepared this." I laid a copy of the dissolution of marriage document in front of her. Carol was confused. "You cheated. Our marriage is over. Sign this, and I can move on with my life." She clutched at the document as if trying to strangle it. I could see her lips moving as she read the statement, which listed adultery as the reason. Attached to the statement were 24 color photographs labeled Evidence B. When Carol got to them, she screamed, "Oh God, no!" She began pounding her fists on the table while wailing something unintelligible. I took no pleasure in watching the only woman I had ever loved realize that she had separated Greg and Carol forever. As the final demise of our marriage enveloped her, she seemed to grow smaller and more colorless. I couldn't help but wonder if she was so foolish as to think I would ever accept her strange breakup. With each new photo, her wailing grew louder and louder. I watched it with disgust. It was a good thing I had swallowed an almost prohibitive dose of tranquilizers to steel my soul for this moment. Otherwise, I might have wavered in my resolve. Frankly, I'd rather die than endure this. Unfortunately, the prescription vial was empty. Carol sank to the floor, her hands reaching for my right ankle. I could make out one word. "Please." I fought the urge to crush her fingers under my heel. Instead, I pushed my chair back so she couldn't reach it. Although I knew how this story would end, I was also in a state of shock. So I closed my eyes and tried to pretend that this was a horrible nightmare that I had to find a way out of. But when I opened them, I was still in hell, and the demon was still taunting me, pulling air into its heartless chest. The ringing of the front doorbell brought me back to reality. I turned around and muttered, "I'll be right back." 2 men entered the foyer carrying boxes. We talked for a while, and then they headed toward the overflowing closet in the master bedroom. It had cost a tidy sum to hire 2 movers to pack all of my wife's clothes and personal belongings, but it was worth every penny. Carol raised her head and managed to squeak out, "Who are they?" "If you refer to document A, our prenuptial agreement states that if you are unfaithful, you lose everything, including this house. So to answer your question, they're from Reliable Moving and Storage. They will pack all of your belongings. I rented a mini storage unit near where you work and paid for the first and last month's rent. You'll be out of here as early as today." Carol groaned. "I can't believe this is happening." She curled up in a ball and sobbed. "What did you expect when you slept with your boss?" "Oh, Greg, I thought, can I at least explain?" "It doesn't matter. You're a liar and a cheat. Now you should know a couple things. The lease on your BMW is in the company's name. I took the keys out of your purse because they will pick it up in the morning. You will also find that all of your credit cards have been canceled. Your cell phone will be disconnected first thing in the morning. In addition, your name has been removed from all of our checking and savings accounts. And you will never have to worry about anyone at the country club treating you with respect again." My cell phone rang. I looked at the caller ID and answered it. "All set?" A moment later, I answered, "Thank you. I'll look forward to your report. I thought you might be interested to know that your boyfriend's wife, who is 8 months pregnant, kicked him out when my private investigator gave her copies of these photos." I turned the monitor so she could see another debauchery. "I told you he was a player when I first met him. You replied that I was stupid. Stupid, that word is seared into my soul. 2 weeks later, he was sleeping with you. 2 weeks. You lasted 2 whole weeks before... There was no need to finish the sentence. I know his wife vowed to divorce him if he cheated again. Oh, he forgot to mention that you're the third girl she's caught him with. So he's all yours. I guess you won't have to worry about the perils of single life. I wish you a happy life together, until he cheats on you too. Carol's cell phone rang. Let me guess. Your lover is calling to give you some good news. He's all yours. I grabbed the phone off the coffee table and smashed it on the floor. The ringing stopped. Carol's face contorted into a grotesque mask. I could see the terror in her eyes. You've thought this through, haven't you? You know what? I've thought a lot of things through. Tomorrow morning, my attorney will visit your employer. We've reviewed your employee handbook, and you should expect to be fired, and your boyfriend too, for moral damages. I wonder if they pay the stupid bitches unemployment compensation. And that's just the beginning. The doorbell rang again. I'll be right back. Carol froze in place. Her mouth was carelessly open. She was making strange noises that couldn't be called words. Following me, an older man in a gray suit returned. This is Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson is the notary who will notarize your signature on the divorce papers. We'll have the movers witness it. She finally managed to ask the obvious question, what happens if I refuse to sign? Then I'll hit the send button and everyone you know, family, friends, co-workers, everyone at church, women at the club, everyone I can find who ever knew you, will get an email overflowing with pictures of you cheating. There are even a couple short videos. Is there anything I can say to make you change your mind? You've been sleeping with your boss for at least 6 weeks now, and you tried to talk me into moving out of our house so you could sleep with him in our bed. I know you're not stupid enough to think I'd keep a lying harlot as my wife. Carol looked like a blank nothing. If you had confessed the truth to me tonight, I would have been willing to do anything to save our marriage. I gave you every chance. But instead, all you did was lie. You betrayed me. You betrayed us. I hate you like I've never hated anyone before, and it scares me how much I want to hurt you. My hands shook with rage. But I'll tell you what I will do. Until 6 weeks ago, you were the epitome of everything a soulmate can be. You were my dream, my fantasy. You were the reason I lived, and you killed it all in me. In our state, it's a no-fault divorce. I have a second set of papers that state the vague grounds for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. Sign now and get out of my house before I lose control of myself, and I promise I won't tell anyone the truth. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. 5 minutes later, her signature was double-witnessed and sealed, and the first half of my life was over. Carol looked stunned as she stood at the end of the driveway waiting for a cab to take her to the business-class motel on the highway. I had reserved a regular room for her. I wondered if she would see the humor in it. It's been 2 years. I still haven't broken my promise or told anyone anything. Until now. Betrayal at first glance. My name is Eric, and I found out the difficult way that no longer all betrayals are inherently evil. Much of the time, though, it's miles masqueraded in acquainted smiles and knowing glances. A life focused on loyalty. I had constructed my existence on difficult paintings and being faithful, assuming if I devoted myself absolutely to my profession, to my marriage, and the existence I dreamed of for the destiny, the sector might in some way praise me back. And it did, so I concept, for years. My career turned into transferring ahead. I become blissfully married to a lady I cherished, and the future appeared correct. I worked for one of the industry's main companies, toiling on past-due nights as my fellow personnel shut their laptops and known as it a nighttime at 5 sharp. I became now, not running. I become crafting something profitable, something so as to endure. Having lived in suspension for years, I ought to experience now that it became all going to be worthwhile. The night that changed everything. The organization's annual ball was now not only an advanced affair, it was the nighttime careers were cast, promotions not introduced in hushed tones, however shouted for all of us to listen. It changed into a nighttime reputations were solid. And that YR? I turned into a strong candidate for one of the corporation's most coveted jobs. It wasn't about cash. It was approximately validation. Confirmation that everyone the lengthy nights and misplaced holidays had paid off. My spouse, Jolyn, the female I'd built my whole lifestyles round, had been there with me celebrating. She wasn't my wife. She was the only man or woman I trusted truly. I'd by no means questioned her loyalty. Until that nighttime. The first signs. The ecosystem turned into lovely. Gold chandeliers illuminated tables that have been fantastically set. Crystal glasses shone, silverware flashed, and the air became heavy with expectation. I entered with confidence, my hand on the small of Jolyn's again, gently. Tonight turned into the night that would do it all, and she turned into here, with me, just in which I had desired her to be. Jolyn become generally fascinating, but tonight she was in a league of her personal. Her nighttime dress became a deep dark black that hugged her curves like a second pores and skin, her hair fell in free waves, and her smile illuminated the corners of every room. People took be aware. They constantly did. And whilst she spoke, discussions came to a halt. When she laughed, heads turned. For the first half of the evening, the whole thing turned into in order that. I took her round and delivered her to my colleagues, and again, she captivated all people she talked to. Jolyn had a skills. She made human beings feel seen, heard. And then it changed. The glances that gave it away. It became diffused in the beginning. So moderate I nearly left out it. A look. Simply a flash of eye touch I hardly ever noticed. But then I noticed where she was observing, or on whom. Luke, my boss, the guy who had grown the company from scratch. Charismatic, ruthless, perilously persuasive. He failed to simply call for, he personified the corporation's achievement. And Jolyn. She wasn't sincerely observing at him. She turned into observing at him just like the rest of the world had ceased to exist. Not a glance, a stare, resolute, intense. Then Luke stared, returned. A smile wavered on the nook of his mouth, knowing diffused. He knew the appearance she was giving him, and he did not shift his gaze. He calm in it. Something inner me constricted. Jolyn appeared away just as speedy, smiling softly at something one among them had said, her voice mild, clean. Then, a second later, her gaze snapped lower back to him. The evidence piles up. I took a breath, accomplishing for my drink, attempting to influence myself that I changed into paranoid. I played at the side of the change I was being invited into, smiling where appropriate, nodding in which nodding became appropriate. But it did no longer sense proper. It felt as even though the room had chilled, as even though I changed into outdoor the scene, but gazing it from the outdoor. And then, now not having a clue when I noticed it manifest, I glanced up and stuck a glimpse of them. Together, side through aspect. They were guffawing, talking. Jolyn edged forward a hair's breadth, her arms gently on his arm in a circulate that were innocently unintentional, if no longer for me. I wrapped my hand tighter round my glass. The clinking glasses, the voices, the music fell away. I noticed handiest them. Luke leaned in near, his grin huge, honest. And then she did something to my belly, a coil of betrayal. She pushed hair at the back of her ear. A little frightened motion. One I became all too acquainted with. Jolyn most effective did that when she become shy. Or when she turned into being coy. The killing blow. And then, for the first time that night, our eyes locked. For an instantaneous, her smile wavered. A flicker of something she hadn't intended to show. Guilt. It flashed, there and gone in a lightning flash. But I had witnessed it. A crack inside the wall, and then poof, long gone. She laughed at me like nothing changed into wrong, like I turned into really mad. But I wasn't. She clung to Luke for the relaxation of the night. I tried to play it cool, to go along with the drift, to be present. However, discovered myself sneaking glances over. She turned into giggling too uproariously at his one-liners. Her hand persevered to glide returned onto his arm, hands rested there a beat too long. And Luke, he leaned in. He wasn't tolerating her affections. He turned into cultivating them. And then, all of a sudden, Jolyn became lower back at my side. Her touch on my arm was thoughtless. "I ought to take a call," she stated, flashing me her telephone for an instant. No name. Number best. Something wasn't right. "Fine," I stated, trying to sound composed. She grinned, kissed me at the cheek like no massive element, and vanished into the throngs. I stood there, mouth dry and a knotted lump in my throat. 5 minutes went by means of, and Luke disappeared too. The truth is out. That's while the shiver caught me. I scanned the area, my eyes switching from the bar to the dance floor, and then from the balcony at the back of the glass doorways. Nothing. And then it struck me. I hadn't observed both considered one of them in nearly 20 minutes. A knot twirled in my chest. I set my drink on an adjoining table, fists bunching into fists. Then I commenced to move, edging past corporations of human beings, weaving through laughter, communique, and thudding song. The noise receded as I entered a dark passageway. Then I heard it. Soft laughter, muffled, covered up. I stopped useless. My coronary heart pounded. A low whisper got here next. Then a groan, silent but unmistakable. A sit-back coursed through my veins, my respiratory smoothed out as I tracked the sound. One of the doorways alongside the hallway turned into open a crack, a shaft of golden light streaming into the hallway. I took out my phone, hit document, and threw the door extensive open. And there they have been. The return. I drove up to the driveway and just sat there for a second, searching at the house that had been my home. It changed into the equal, however it wasn't. It was now nothing but a shell. Hollow partitions, empty guarantees. I'd driven into the residence as if I have been a traveler. I spotted a suitcase and began packing all that I would require. There turned into no manner within the universe that I might ever be dozing there once more. Not in that mattress, the calls. The smartphone was ringing frequently. I finally glanced at the display screen. 12 ignored calls, all from Jolyn. I may want to have grew to become it off, but I hadn't. I let it ring, let her wait in limbo, let the burden of her alternatives capture up to her. Just as I become final up the bag and getting my keys, the front door swung open. Jolyn leaned against the sink, her breath heaving, mascara tracks flowing down her cheeks, her chest inflated and deflated with choking sobs.
"Eric, just pay attention to me."
I nodded my head, a ripple of amusing breaking loose. Nothing extra to pay attention. I started out towards the door, however she stuck maintain of me in a trembling grip on my arm. "It wasn't coincidence," she gasped, her frame shaking in sobs. "It supposed nothing. Don't throw us away over this." I spun to her, my eyes flaming. "A mistake?" I became as cool as a winter morning. "You humiliated me in front of fellow workers that I work with, my friends, and you're going to speak about saving our marriage with me now?" There were tears streaming down her face as she wrapped her arm around mine. "I love you," she whispered. I stepped again from her, her hand searing my skin.
You misplaced your right to mention that. You had a desire.
Her face crumpled. She flung out her palms all over again, each motion full of desperation. Eric, please. My tone turned into tough and icy. We're through. I'm divorcing you. The phrases struck her like a blow. She staggered, weeping, damaged. I did not linger. No extra begging, no extra regrets. I stepped out of the door, her screams echoing in my thoughts. A sleepless night. That nighttime, I spent the night in a motel and checked in. The bed became corporation. The established order became stupid. I did not sleep, lying on the bed with gaze locked on the ceiling in amazement. Sleep escaped me. There became not anything but silence and reminiscences. Jolin's surprise within the lounge. Luke's smile stiffening the moment our eyes met. Her anguished cry at the back of me as I grew to become. All of that not counted. The next steps. The subsequent day, I stood beneath a blistering jet of water until my head became clean. Dressed. Walked instantly to the exceptional rated divorce attorney I should find. Sitting across from him, gritted difficult tooth, clenched palms, I failed to waver. I need a divorce, I knowledgeable him bluntly. And I need to ensure she gets as little as the regulation can possibly supply her. He nodded and flipped open a fresh criminal pad. Leave it to me. With that procedure underway, my next move became a foregone end. Luke, justice served. I strode into the office building with cause, sidestepping pleasant hellos from co-workers as I went instantly to human resources. By the evening, humans might act otherwise in the direction of me. I sat opposite Peggy, the HR supervisor, and slid my cell phone throughout the desk. You'll want to see this. I pressed play. Luke's face stuffed the screen, arms around my spouse. Peggy's expression grew to become icy as the video performed on. We said not anything as the clip rolled. Jolin leaned into him, her body lying to the rest. A speedy kiss, casual, intimate, giving little scope for denial. When the video stopped, Peggy breathed deeply, her lips pinched into a thin line. This is serious. There's greater, I instructed her. Luke's been the use of his power right here for months. People have spoken approximately it, but no one desired to be the first one to talk up. I'm going first. She did not flinch. An inner investigation became opened that day. And then the proceedings commenced. Stories of ladies manipulated, intimidated, lied to with the aid of Luke's empty promises of development and authority. By the weekend, he changed into long past. Let pass. His recognition, broken. The last goodbye. The divorce papers got here 2 days later for Jolin. No be aware, no call, only the same bloodless finality that I introduced to her while she chose some other. I dispatched her an envelope rather than a goodbye, and then the pleas started out. Please don't try this, Eric. Can we speak? I love you. I omit you. I study all of them, but I in no way responded. The truth revealed. A. Few days went by way of before I went again to the house. Not out of emotion, but to retrieve a few things I hadn't delivered with me, matters that I did not want to lose. As I drove up, I observed a little black container sitting inside the driveway. 1. I failed to recognize my fists, curled around, the steering wheel. I drove slowly towards it, instincts already raging. Inside, the house became bare, no TV, no sounds. Most effective, heavy, eerie. Silence. Until I heard something. Whispery sounds inside the hallway. My coronary heart contracted. Then once more. Software unidentifiable. Moans coming from the bedroom. I failed to assume. I became down the corridor and burst through the door. There they have been, Jolin and Luke, twisted together at the mattress that became ours. Time froze. Luke's face went white, trapped between speech and silence. Jolyn sprang to cover up the sheets, her eyes wild and panicked. "Eric!" She whispered my name. But what I saw on her face wasn't regret. It became worry. Not fear of dropping me, fear of being determined. She'd satisfied herself that she had, that I'd by no means recognize, that I'd hold dwelling in lack of know-how, still believing I turned into unique to her. No one budged for a second. Then her expression shifted, hardened. "What are you doing here?" she snarled, annoyance edging into her voice. I gave a brief, miserable giggle. Not because it was funny, because it became pathetic. I made the right preference, I breathed, and then I walked away, moving on. The weeks after had been all about beginning over. I leased a unmarried room condo. No memories, no lies, just a tabula rasa. Life grew quieter, simpler. Work, the fitness center, a drink here and there with some buddies who virtually cared. Nothing wild, nothing shallow. But it became my smartphone. The divorce went via quicker than I had predicted. Then I heard something that made me almost giggle out loud. Luke dumped her, and cue, as though on cue, the final message got here through. "Eric, please, can we speak?" I scowled on the screen. Then I deleted the message, and I moved on, because everything can't be salvaged. My name is Terry S. McMurtry. I am 6 feet 2 inches tall, weigh 230 pounds, and don't have much fat on my body. I keep myself in good shape because my wife, Marianne, insists on it. I run 2 miles at least 5 times a week. Marianne runs with me most of the time. We both go to the gym on Saturday mornings. She is always smiling and happy. My wife and I had been married for 10 wonderful years when I noticed a change. It was a dramatic change. I didn't realize what the problem was. One day everything seemed to be fine, and the next day she was furious with me. She wasn't smiling anymore. I racked my brain trying to remember what I had done wrong. I had never even considered infidelity. I loved my wife, and I was sure she had the same feelings for me. We had a nice house in an upscale neighborhood. Our house was not the biggest and not the smallest. We had 2 girls and 1 son. We were a regular family. Marianne and I ran from our hearts. I had my own business that was growing rapidly, and we both ran after our kids to sports, dance lessons, and school just to keep up with their studies. Our twin girls, Samantha and Savannah, were each 7 years old, and the boy, Terry Jr., was 6. Right after baby Terry was born, I had a vasectomy, and Marianne had her tubes tied. When she would suddenly change, I would ask her what was wrong. She would reply that if I couldn't figure it out, I was a fool. We went through a 4 to 5 week period where she very rarely talked to me. There was no intimacy, kissing, or sex. She didn't smile at all. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it was over. I came home from work one evening and she put her arms around my neck and kissed me passionately. Everything went back to normal, and I still had no way of knowing what I had done wrong. All she said was that the problem was her, and that she had fixed it. It was a few days before we had sex, and that time seemed to make our love fresh and more delightful than ever. I thought about it and changed a few things. I hired a new salesman, and now he did most of the traveling. He was very good, and my business grew. We were manufacturing and installing large reverse osmosis units for cities, ships, hotels, and other large customers. I developed a better osmotic membrane that lasted much longer and could be flushed several times for even longer use. I had 4 teams of installers domestically and 4 international teams. These days, we sell more and more online. I was no longer traveling. It seemed to me that our sex life was even better than before the changes. She began to enjoy sex much more. In Marianne's defense, she was and still is a very beautiful woman. She is not a slender, willowy girl, but she is not heavy either. She has big, beautiful breasts with double D cups and a perfect ass at 5 feet 6 inches tall. She weighs 130 pounds. She is a brunette with a killer smile and a very happy and upbeat attitude. She really enjoys playful sex, dressing up in sexy outfits and role-playing. She was raised in a very strict religious family. It took her a long time to try anything other than straight sex. We were fortunate to have good neighbors and a busy social life with lots of friends. We had several couples that we met regularly. We learned that 4 families on our block were into group sex, swinging. Marianne and I discussed it at length and decided it wasn't for us. We told them, maybe someday, but not now. We told them we respected their right to do as they see fit between consenting adults. They responded that they respected our decision and the issue was never brought up again. We still enjoyed their company at parties and get-togethers. We were always among the first to leave. There was never any comment or innuendo. Our neighbors Frank and Lucy Polanski were one of the swingers, but we still liked them, and we still got together a few times a month to go clubbing or went next door for cocktails or dinner. We knew they went to swinger parties on the first and third Saturday of every month. I never liked the way he looked at Marianne, but I thought he was harmless. Marianne and I had great sex several times a week and a very passionate night on Saturdays. Once a month, each of the grandparents would leave the kids overnight, and we would play with each other until the wee hours of the morning. On Sunday mornings, we took turns bringing our spouses breakfast in bed. After breakfast, we usually made love again. We rarely planned anything for Friday night because we were usually tired after a hectic week. Often after we put the kids down and they fell asleep, Marianne would go to bed early, and I would go online on the computer in my room. Every now and then I would discover a new erotic website. I had discovered literotica.com a few years before and used to read a story or two before bed. I tried all sorts of genres, but I liked Loving Wives the best. I often go to a page that lists different categories of short stories, then close the list with my hand and blindly choose a category. Then I go to the top of the page, which randomly appears on the screen. I then click on the so-called story spinner, which selects a random story from that category. That evening, I chose a story by Karen K. It was a story about a white husband who was forced to find black lovers for his wife. He was what is known as a cuckold. He was humiliated and physically abused by his wife's big black lovers. I couldn't believe that any man could allow such a situation to continue. At the end of the article was a link to Karen K's website, KarenKOnline.com. I got curious and went to the site. The site had a catalog of amateur interracial movies on DVD. I randomly selected a page and took a quick look at everything that was there. Each DVD had a few frames and a story about what the DVD was about. All of the stories on that page had white wives having sex with black men, including several where Karen K herself was having sex with a black lover, and her husband was operating the camera. I turned to another page and stopped at another DVD called KD0009 Teasing Hubby. I was struck by the pictures. There was a girl who could have been Marianne's twin. She was smiling at the camera. Holy crap, it was Marianne. I recognized her necklace and earring set that I had given her for her birthday a few years ago. She was wearing her favorite garter belt and black stiletto shoes with ankle straps that matched her skimpy French maid outfit. She even wore the little lace gloves that came with the outfit. I went back and reread the article again. It said the woman's name was Diana. As far as I could tell, the story had nothing to do with Marianne and me. I ordered the DVD. I was sure my marriage was over. I went to our room and packed a bag. Marianne looked up and sleepily asked, "What are you doing, darling?" "I'm leaving you. Don't try to contact me. I'll contact you again when I can look at you without vomiting." "What?" "You heard me? I'm leaving." "Wait, what's going on? What happened?" "Think about what you did that could have caused me to feel that way. I'm sure you won't have any trouble remembering." I picked up my bag and left. I rented a motel for the night, but it was a waste of money because I didn't sleep a wink. How could she do this to me because I thought she loved me? What about the kids? I knew I couldn't leave them no matter what happened. I also knew I couldn't look into Marianne's eyes anymore. What the hell was I going to do? In the morning, I called my office 15 minutes before 9. I knew Selena, my secretary, would be there to take my personal call. I told her that I would not be home that morning and that I would call later. She replied, "Boss, please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." Earlier, Marianne called. She was hysterical and looked very upset. She said, "You're leaving her. I can't believe her. What's going on?" Selena had worked for me for 8 years. I just couldn't do without her. She's 32 years old. She's a gorgeous black woman. Both Marianne and I are very fond of her. I sighed. "Honey, I found out last night that Marianne is cheating on me. I'm having a hard time myself right now. I don't know what to do. I know I don't want to see her for a while until the urge to hurt her subsides. I need to sleep, but every time I close my eyes, I see her laughing and smiling, making love to a black man. I tried going to the movies, but it didn't work. I couldn't get Marianne out of my mind. God, I missed her and my kids already." I sat at the bar, sipping a Captain and water until the bar closed. The next day, I just wandered around town. I never realized I could miss that cheating bitch so damn much. She was everything to me. And what do I have now? Nothing. What am I going to do? How could I have been so stupid? Then I remembered the Breckenridge status report. Hell, it was supposed to be reviewed and answered today, and I hadn't even looked at it. I decided I'd better call the office and have Selena make an excuse for me. I pressed the auto dial button and she answered. "Terry, where are you? Put your ringer on." "Listen, girl, call Breckenridge and tell them I'm sick and I'll have an answer for them tomorrow, okay?" "No, it's no use. They've already called and demanded an answer. They said if they don't get it by the end of the day today, your contract will be terminated by default. You better get your ass down here, or it's going to cost you dearly." "I can't think straight. I don't know what to tell you. Right now, I don't care what happens." "Okay, I'll tell you what will happen. If you don't fulfill the contract, the default fines will put you out of business. They will destroy this company and ruin you financially. Your kids will be on welfare. Now get your ass over here. I know you have the answers in your head. You do that for me? Terry, I need this job." Okay. I'm on my way. Get me all the data ready before I get here. I'll see what I can do." "Okay, Terry. Come to the office and we'll help you get everything ready." I told her I was on my way. It seemed I was in Selena's debt. She was taking care of her sick mother and needed the money. She was willing to work any time I asked her to. She was a loyal and dedicated worker. I didn't want to let her down. I walked into the main office and headed for my private office. Selena jumped up from her desk and rushed over to me. She stopped and looked me over from head to toe. "Boss, you look awful. Like a dog that wouldn't bother to drag you here. Go to your office and sit down before you collapse. Let me get you some coffee and a jelly donut, okay?" "Yeah, I haven't had much of an appetite lately." She made coffee and brought me a couple donuts. I sipped the coffee. It tasted pretty good. Selena pointed to the donut. I shrugged and took a bite. I tried to swallow and gulped. It started to rise back up. I covered my mouth with my hand and managed to hold back the bite, but my stomach rumbled and I pushed the donut away. Selena watched me carefully, tears running down each cheek. She stood up, said she'd be right back, and left the room. She was gone for only a minute or two, and then she came over to me. She said quietly, "Boss, you know I love you and would never do anything wrong. Please take these 2 pills. They will relax you and ease the pain." I took the pills from her and put them in my mouth, drinking my coffee. I choked a little but held back. She looked at me and said, "Don't worry about the Breckenridge report. I've sorted it out, and they're happy." Selena turned my chair around and then placed another regular office chair in front of me. She lifted my feet up onto the seat of the chair, then tilted the chair back and locked it into a reclining position. The chair had a high back and supported my head. She moved to me from behind and gently stroked my closed eyes. Selena whispered, "Just lean back and relax for a minute, and then we can get some things straight. Just close your eyes and relax. Everything will be fine. We both love you." Everything around me became a blur, and I vaguely thought, both of us? Then I dozed off. I heard my name and woke up. I tried to figure out where I was, but then I realized I was in my office. In front of me was Selena's pretty face. She smiled. "Did you sleep well, Terry?" "Han?" "What's going on?" I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. My hands were chained to the armrests of the chair. Selena said, "Let me help you," and stepped behind the chair. I felt the back of the chair lift up and heard a click as it locked into an upright position. I watched her walk to where she could pull the chair out from under me. I felt or sensed someone's presence behind me. I turned around and saw Mary Ann. She looked worse than I had ever seen her. Dark circles under her eyes, no makeup. Tears were running down both cheeks. She looked tired, pale, and gaunt. I wanted to turn away, but I felt a deep sympathy for her. I hoped she wasn't in as much pain as I was. I expected to feel the anger that had burned inside me earlier, but all I felt was a deep sadness for both of us. I wanted to tell her not to cry, but all that came out was, "Why?" She sobbed and ducked her face into her hands. There was no way she could pretend to be in pain. She sort of prostrated herself on the floor, her body shaking with agonizing sobs. I tried to free myself. "Let me go. I have to help her." Selena grabbed my shoulders. "You promise you won't hurt Mary Ann?" Hell, I could never do that, no matter how angry I was. I wanted to beat the shit out of her, but when I see her, I know I can't do it, even if it kills me to realize she doesn't love me. Selena undid the Velcro straps holding my arms down. I walked over to Mary Ann and lifted her to her feet and pulled her to me. I felt her arms close around me and she hugged me tightly. We stood like that for a few minutes. She lifted her head and looked at me. "I never stopped loving you for a second. I will always love you." I sighed. "I'm sorry, but I find that hard to believe. In fact, I don't believe it at all." Selena put her hands on my face and turned it towards her. "Terry, I know it's hard, but if you listen to Mary Ann, you'll realize that she made a stupid mistake not because she didn't love you, but because she loved you very much." I looked at Mary Ann. "Can you tell me about that?" She looked up at me and tears sprang from her eyes. "I can't! Can Selena tell you? I cry when I think about how stupid I was." I picked Mary Ann up in my arms and carried her to the couch. I sat down and took her in my arms. I looked at Selena and nodded. Selena said, "About 2 years ago, your neighbor told Mary Ann that you were cheating on her with your secretary, me. She laughed at him and told him to get serious. He said he would prove it. A few weeks later, he showed her pictures of you and me sitting in a booth, laughing and smiling, me touching your hand. He had several similar pictures of us together in different places. He had a picture of us walking out of a motel room together. He had a set of pictures of us hugging. And then he showed her a picture of us making love. He wouldn't let her keep the pictures. He said it might jeopardize the source." Mary Ann watched me, and I said, "I remember everything except the last picture. She was gone. You and I have had lunch together many times. It should be obvious that we are good friends, nothing more. But things may look different. We left the motel room together the day you, Mary Ann, and I picked up your family at the airport and drove them to the motel. Mary Ann, you stayed in the car and I helped with the luggage. We made 2 moves so everything would fit in the room. The last picture must have been tweaked. It's easy to do on the computer. One thing I need to know, who was the roommate, Frank Polanski?" Mary Ann shuddered. "How did you know who told you?" "No one told me. I've seen the way he looks at you, and I know how thin a ball he is. What did he tell you, that you should get even for having sex with him?" "Yes, that's exactly what he did. I told him that would never happen, that I would have to sleep with a big black stud to get even with you. I told him I wanted to make a video so no one would get hurt. I didn't think I could do it in front of you. I knew you would have to be restrained, and I was afraid you would get hurt. Frank said he had a great camera and that he would film it and protect me. Where did you find the black stallion? I called one of our neighbors, Betty Stewart. She and her husband are into swinging, and told her what I wanted to do. She said I was wrong, that usually settling a score with life turns out the same for the one who settles it. I should have listened to her, but I was so mad at you I wasn't thinking straight. She was afraid I'd get hurt or infected if I picked the wrong guy. She said Frank couldn't even stand up for himself. She said she knew a guy who could do it. He was very gentle, sweet, and very rich. She said I would really like this guy, so I asked her to see if he was available. So you liked it? Yes and no. He was very gentle and a very nice man. I found it hard to relax when Frank was around. I know he was counting on me too, but I made it clear I didn't want that. Leon, my beau, listened to me and assured me that Frank wouldn't hurt me. I just wanted to hurt you like you did me. Marianne, I never cheated on you, never. I know that now, but I thought you had cheated. So you made a tape. I only saw a couple shots and a 30-second trailer of you having fun with him. I ordered a copy online. It should be here any day now. Marianne looked at Selena, and Selena walked over to my desk and handed me an item in a padded plastic envelope. I shook my head. I'll look at it later. I looked at Marianne. Is it as bad as I think it is? Tears ran down her cheeks. Worse, I don't want you to see it. You made it to show me, didn't you? Yes, but then I thought you were cheating on me. I thought you were going to leave me. I thought all sorts of crazy things every time you left the house. I was so mad at you that I was afraid to even talk to you because I knew you were sleeping with Selena. How did you know you were wrong? What Frank told me didn't add up. He said you took Selena to the motel every Wednesday afternoon. So the following Wednesday I went to your office to catch you and Selena when you returned from the motel. When I got to your office, you were gone. But Selena greeted me and seemed very happy to see me. She didn't look ashamed, scared, or surprised to see me. She said you were at your usual meeting at the plant on Wednesday afternoon. I asked when she expected you back. She looked at her computer and motioned for me to look at it. I saw that you were sitting at your desk drinking coffee from a cup. I could faintly hear people talking. Selena explained that she had turned on your webcam to record the meeting so you both didn't have to be in the office at the same time. She said you've been doing this for years. I felt like a damned fool and afraid of what I had done. I broke down and cried. I told Selena what I had done and she was furious. Selena replied, You're damn right I told Marianne I didn't believe her. I told her that I thought she did it because she wanted some weird tool and that now she was afraid you would find out about it. I looked at Marianne, and she looked at Selena, and nodded, and then looked at me. That's what she said. Selena smiled at her. I told you to prove to me that what you said was true. Selena looked at me. Marianne described a black man she had sex with. I thought I knew who she was talking about, so I asked her some questions. You called a meeting at the plant, and I turned on the tape recorder. I then sent Marianne to your office and made some phone calls. I spoke to Leon Walker, and he confirmed everything Marianne had told me. I know Leon very well, and he is a very honest man. He said he told Marianne that she was making a big mistake. He didn't like Frank, and he was afraid to leave her alone with him. I wondered what to do. I told Marianne to go home, relax, forget about what happened, and pray that you never find out about it. I looked at Marianne. Did you have sex with this man after that time? She stared at me. She shook her head. No, I said softly. Did you want to? She flared up. Hell no! Have you cheated on me with any other man during our marriage? No. Never, she sobbed. Never. How can I ever believe you or trust you again? I don't know, but we have to try. I never stopped loving you for a second. I will never stop loving you. I was fooled by the expert. I didn't believe in you when I knew perfectly well what kind of person you were. That's no excuse, but I've heard and read about so many husbands cheating on naive wives who thought their husbands loved them that I was easily fooled. You are such a handsome and sexy man that most women would love to grab you. How did this video end up on a site like this? They bought it from someone. They had a receipt with statements from the people who were supposedly in the video. Frank got the DVD? He told me he'd have to edit it and that I'd get the only copy. He brought it over the next day and I burned it. I looked at the two women. I think Frank owes us something, don't you? Both nodded. Marianne smiled. It was a chilling smile. There was murder and mayhem in it. The last couple years, Selena and I have made it a little hobby to gather information on Frank Polanski. I talked to all the ladies in the neighborhood. Frank seduced or blackmailed more than half of them. His wife Lucy had too much to drink at one of the neighborhood parties, and I walked her home. We had a long talk. She hates the swinger lifestyle they lead. They have an agreement that they are forbidden to have sex with anyone unless the spouse is present and consents. Lucy said she is sure he is cheating on her. She's a school teacher and he works from home selling insurance. I had to figure out what we could do to him that wouldn't get him in trouble with the law or in jail, but would teach him a lesson. Selena smiled. How about we do the same thing we did with you? Then when he's free and safe, we'll all come in and question him and build a case against him. His wife and girlfriends should be there too. Marianne smiled. Where we can do that should be a very private place so he won't bring anyone if he calls for help. I had to put in my 2 cents. Unless his wife agrees, it won't work. Oh, Terry, we know that. Lucy and his 3 ex-girlfriends are waiting outside. Some of them want to hurt him. Bring them in. Selena went out the door and returned with 4 lovely ladies. I, of course, knew Lucy and another lady who was also a neighbor. I was introduced to the other ladies. Marianne said, "Ladies, I have told you all my story. My hubby knows everything. Please tell us all your stories about Frank and what he did to you. Lucy, please start from the beginning." Lucy told her story of how Frank lied, cheated, and broke the rules they had agreed to live by. She said she only agreed to join him in the swinger lifestyle if those rules were followed. She said she wanted a divorce while she was still young enough to find a nice guy and have children. Marge, another neighbor, told how he convinced her that her husband was cheating on her. She filed for divorce, and since divorce is no fault in our state, she only had to cite irreconcilable differences. After the divorce, her husband disappeared. When she found out she had been lied to, her husband disappeared. She could not find him. She suspected he had gone to Australia or somewhere else. This happened 4 years ago. One of her ex-girlfriends, Bobby, told her how he ruined her marriage when she didn't give in to his advances. He told her husband that she had sex with Frank and many other guys. She wanted Frank to die. Another woman said that Frank destroyed her marriage. Patsy told her husband that Frank threatened her if she didn't have sex with him. Frank had already told her husband that she had group sex with him and several other guys and that she would try to blame it on him. She was also divorced. We discussed what the punishment should be. Most of the girls were in favor of castration. I said it was too easy for him. I wanted to keep the sex drive, but take away his ability to have normal sex with anyone. I told the ladies, I want him to be horny like an old cat but suffer because he can't scratch the itch. Do you know what I mean? My wife said, I think that's a great idea of how we can do that. I said, hell, I really don't know. We'll have to research that. Marge said, hey, I'm a nurse. I have an idea how we can do this. We can never reveal how it happened and make it so he never finds out who did this to him. If he finds out, we could all go to jail. We gathered our thoughts and came up with a plan. It was amended several times, but in the end, we came up with what we thought was a workable plan. Lucy gave us the information we needed about his habits and routines and how he would react to various things. I headed home with Marianne. I explained that I still hadn't forgiven her and that I would be sleeping in the spare bedroom. The kids were happy to see me, and I was happy to be with them again. After dinner, I went up to the spare room and got ready for bed. I turned off the light and lay awake, listening to the sounds while the kids talked and helped wash the dishes. There was a long conversation going on between Mary Ann and the children, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I could hear them going up the stairs, getting ready for bed, going to the bathroom, and then everything went quiet for a while. Then the door opened. Mary Ann walked in, dressed in a little doll dress. I raised my hand and she stopped. I gestured for her to leave. Her shoulders slumped. She turned slowly, looked over her shoulder, and I saw the misery on her face and the tears running down her cheeks. She closed the door quietly. I thought about Mary Ann, our life together, our children, what this was doing to them and what it was doing to me. In the morning, I waited until the kids left for school, and Mary Ann knocked on the door to let me know my breakfast was ready. She didn't seem to have gotten much sleep either. She was standing at the stove when I walked into the kitchen. She smiled slightly and said, "Good morning, Terry." I said, "We need to find out Frank's routine so we can make a plan." Mary Ann walked over to the kitchen table and picked up a yellow notepad. "We've got it pretty well organized. Here's what he did every day of the week for 6 months. The total is the last one, with the average for each day of the week. We found out that every other day he walked a path through the woods in a neighborhood park. I surveyed the park one afternoon. The paths he walked were not used very often on weekdays. Only one group of elderly people used them every morning around 7 o'clock. Frank started his walks at 7:30. I watched him on 4 of his morning walks, and he always followed the same trail to a spot about a mile down the trail and then turned around and walked back the way he came. Each path took him 18 minutes. On different days, the difference was no more than a few seconds. I found a good place to ambush him about a quarter mile from where he turned around. The path went through thick brush. About 20 feet into the dense shrubbery, a hunting trail ran parallel to the main trail. I carefully moved from the hunting trail into the dense shrubbery next to the trail. I was very careful to hide the new trail without removing too much foliage. I rubbed dirt into the fresh cuts to give them age for the casual observer. The next morning, I sat in the brush along the trail wearing dark clothing and a ski mask. In the earpiece of my walkie-talkie, I heard Mary Ann say, "He's coming back. There's no one behind him." Patsy's voice said, "All clear all the way to the trailhead. Let's go, boss." I saw Frank coming down the trail and got everything I needed ready. As he passed me, I jumped him from behind and jammed a chloroform-soaked rag over his nose and mouth. He resisted for only a few seconds before he lost consciousness. I dragged him off the main trail and onto a new trail. I covered his head with a black cloth hood. I hurried back to the main trail, and after making sure all traces of the short struggle were erased, I went outside. In my ear, I heard Mary Ann say, "Watch out, Terry. There's a group of runners headed your way. You only have a minute or two." I slid back into the bushes and pulled Frank away from the main trail. I reached into my shirt pocket and pulled out a syringe with a ready charge. I removed the cap from the needle and carefully let the air out of the dose of anesthetic. I rolled Frank over onto his side and injected the shot through his shorts into his ass. He slept for almost half an hour. Selena and Marge were walking on the new trail, and Marge was checking Frank's vital signs. She looked at me and gave me a thumbs up. She started to say something, but I put my finger to my lips and she stopped talking. I could hear the runners chattering as they made their way down the trail. We could hear their footsteps on the asphalt path, receding into the distance. I told the girls we could talk, but I was worried that Frank might remember what we'd said under hypnosis. Mary Ann smiled and handed me 2 earplugs. The plugs fit very snugly over my ears. I put the hood on, and we were able to talk freely. Selena ran to her van, which was parked on a road maintained by the Park Service, and came back with Frank's bike. Lucy told us that Frank rode his bike once a week on the same trail, but much farther away. Frank's bike had a metal water bottle holder attached to the center of the handlebars with an adjustment bolt. I took the bike out onto the main trail and headed to a pre-selected spot. On a steel pole hung a metal marker indicating the distance to the trail. Just beyond the marker was a small oak tree. I carefully placed the broken branch on the trail in front of the sign. I kicked the sign with my foot, bending it to the ground. Taking Frank's bike, I kicked it hard against the branch, the marker, and the tree. The handlebars twisted and the front wheel bent badly. I hurried back to Frank, pulled out my earplugs, took off my sweatshirt, and helped the girls carry him to the bike. We carefully dragged him over the sign, bike handlebars, and bottle holder, making sure his shorts were ripped from waistband to crotch. One pant leg of the shorts was almost torn off. We rammed good old Frank into the tree head first, scratching his head and tearing his ear. After surveying the scene, I took Selena's hand and left Marge with Frank while we checked out what the area looked like. We grinned at each other and watched Marge throw some things into a plastic bag and give Frank another shot in the arm. She grabbed the bag and ran past us down the new trail. Selena followed her. I checked to see if all the tracks indicating that the new trail had been used had been filled in or removed. I heard Marge's voice in my ear. "Calling right now!" I ran down the trail about 50 yards and turned onto a side trail leading to the service road. They met me in the van and we drove a little more up the road and picked up Patsy. As we approached the other side of the park, we stopped and listened. A siren wail could be heard in the distance. We grinned at each other. We saw Mary Ann's rental car approaching. I got out and got in the car with my wife. We headed home. The other girls left too, as planned. We all had good alibis for that morning. All the evidence was burned in the incinerator at the county dump. Personal papers, bank statements, and the like were also destroyed there. When we got home, Mary Ann slipped into Lucy's next room and told her that everything had gone very well, as far as we could tell. While Mary Ann was there, the phone rang and Lucy picked it up. It was the police informing Lucy that her husband had been seriously injured in an accident. She did a great job of playing the role of surprised and upset about the accident. She said that her husband had gone for a bike ride and she was worried because he didn't come home. She found out where he was taken to a trauma center. She told the police officers that she would go there as soon as she found someone to drive her. She was too upset to drive herself. Mary Ann and I changed clothes. I wore the suit I wore to work. Mary Ann was gorgeous in the brown leather pantsuit I'd bought for her a year or so ago. On her feet were brown boots with 3-inch gold-plated heels, and she was carrying a large brown leather bag. The pants sat on her like a second skin. She could wring a few necks today. I let out a low wolf whistle and she smiled at me. She asked, "Do I look good?" I smiled back. "As usual, you take my breath away." I shook my head, turned, and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard the clack of her heels. Lucy met us at the car. She was dressed more casually, as if she was distracted by household chores. At the hospital, the emergency room doctor informed us that Frank was still in surgery. According to him, he suffered a severe blow to the head and possibly a concussion. He had many cuts, bruises, and contusions, but his manhood was the most affected. He informed us that his manhood was practically amputated by some kind of bracket on his motorcycle when he crashed. The doctor said the prognosis for salvaging most of the organ was very poor because the severed part was badly crushed and destroyed. He said Frank was very lucky that some good Samaritan called the police and reported the accident. He could have bled to death. The cops talked to all of us. Mary Ann and I told them that we were about to go into town for a meeting when Lucy, our neighbor, asked me to take her to the hospital. I said I thought I saw Frank riding away on his bicycle as I picked up the newspaper. Mary Ann said she hadn't seen Frank in days. Mary Ann and I sat with Lucy until Frank was in the recovery room. The surgeon told us that only 1.5 inches of his gunnel had been salvaged. He said they couldn't say if it would function in the future. Otherwise, there was no serious damage other than a mild concussion. Lucy decided to stay until he was out of anesthesia. Mary Ann and I went home. We changed into more comfortable clothes. I sat down at the kitchen table and waited for her to come down. I called Selena on our discarded cell phone and told her how Frank was doing. She laughed and said everything was great. Selena asked, "Have you and Marianne made up yet?" I replied, "I don't know if that's possible." "What?" "I thought you moved back home." "I did, but I'm still sleeping in the hole. I guess I'll have to watch all of this video before I make a decision." "Are you sure you want to do that? What's good about it?" "I don't know. I just feel like I need to know what happened. I know she slept with him." "Oh, Terry. Marianne made him bring a fresh doctor's note saying he was clean. I talked to him. It took them 6 hours to make that DVD because she was so heartbroken and crying for you. Leon said he had never seen a woman who loved her husband the way Marianne loved you. He said she was uncomfortable with what she was doing, but she thought it was the only way to bring you to your senses. In the clip I saw, she looked like she loved everything they did. Terry had to reshoot each scene 2 or 3 times because she would break down and cry in the middle of what they were doing. Frank would delete the scene, and they would reshoot it. I can still see her smiling at the camera, smiling at me. I see her every time I try to sleep. I still love her. I just hate what she did, and I wonder if she did it before or after that, or will do it again. How can I trust her again?" Selena replied, "I can't tell you anything but what I believe myself. I'm sure she's telling you the truth about what happened. Everything she said was confirmed by 2 other people who were present. I know she loves you with all her heart. I don't believe she would ever cheat on you again. She thought you cheated on her, or it wouldn't have happened. She has never denied what she did, or that she was completely wrong. I believe her." I thought for a moment. "Well, I have to admit that I agree with your assessment of the situation, but I still can't sleep. I still don't trust her. How do I fix that?" A voice came from behind me. "Honey, you don't have to fix it. I'm the one who has to fix it for you." I turned around and saw Marianne. She was standing in front of me. "I was the cause of everything. I didn't trust you, and I believed your lies. But if I had thought about the kind of man you are, I would have known you wouldn't do that. It was I who foolishly and willfully committed adultery and broke our sacred wedding vows. God, how I cried and wept over it. I cried when I did it because I knew, even if you slept with Selena, it would hurt you. I prayed that it would shock you and you would realize that you were hurting me too. Will you let me prove my love for you and prove that I will never, ever, ever, ever be unfaithful to you?" I looked into her eyes and saw tears come to her eyes. I asked, "Will you watch the DVD with me and explain exactly how you felt and exactly what you did? And then, when it's over, will you tell me why I should believe you?" She gave me a hard look. "I think I'd rather die than do that. If you insist, then I guess I have to do it. I can't bear the thought of dying, and you will forever believe that I stopped loving you. It never happened, and it never will." I believed her, and felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. One irresponsible and illogical mistake hadn't undone decades of her devotion. I still had a few nagging doubts, but I doubted many of the so-called facts. I looked at Marianne and said, "Okay, honey, show me how much you love me, make me believe you." She did.